So today we're going to talk about the barbell row. What I usually tell people when I teach them the barbell row is that the setup for this is going to be really similar to your deadlift setup. If you're not familiar with the 5-step setup for your deadlift, we filmed another video about that several weeks ago, and I'll link that below in the description. But assuming that you know about the 5-step setup and you've done that before, the barbell row complements that pretty well. There's just going to be 3 main differences that we're going to talk about. So the first one is going to be where you position the bar relative to your foot. So when you set it for a deadlift, you set the bar up over the middle of your foot. It is still going to be most advantageous to have the bar set up over the middle of your foot when you barbell row. However, if you are someone who struggles to set their back in the deadlift for whatever reason, it's going to be super extra hard to set your lower back in the barbell row because this is basically going to be a stiff-legged deadlift setup. So you may need to give yourself a little bit more room. You may need to set the bar up a little further away from the middle of your foot, closer to the ball of your foot, okay? This is something that you can kind of play around with a little bit, but if you already know that you're someone that struggles with setting your back in the deadlift, that's the consolation that you're gonna wanna make early on, okay? The second thing that's gonna be different is your grip width. So you're still going to have a double overhand grip. There's not really any benefit to doing an underhand supinated grip. So he is going to grip the bar, but it's going to be 1 hand width wider than his deadlift grip. So go ahead and grip where your deadlift is, and then go ahead and widen out to where you grip for your rows. So it'll be about a fist distance or a hand width wider when you grip for your rows. Okay. The third thing is that your shins are not going to touch the bar. This does not mean that your knees are not in flexion, so you can bend your knees a little bit, but you don't want them to go all the way to the bar. And again, if you've already set the bar up over your toes a little bit, bringing them all the way to the bar would be a little bit too far. You would be hips too low. So your hips are going to stay high. He can have a little bend in the knee, and that little bend in the knee will help him set his back a little bit. And then everything after this is just going to be purely for the row. So those are the similarities to the deadlift setup. Now we're going to talk about what's strictly correct for the barbell row. He's still going to set his back just like he does in the deadlift. His gaze is going to be in the same spot that it is for the deadlift. But he's going to start the bar off the floor just as little as he can with a little bit of a kick into the floor with his legs. Then he's going to explosively row it into his chest, and it has to make contact with your sternum or with your ribs every single time. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so he's not starting it off the floor initially with his arms. There's just the tiniest movement that he does where he picks the bar up with his arms straight, legs kick into the floor a little bit, and then he pulls it in explosively. Do that again. The bar is going to come down to rest on the floor every single time. So you're not going to keep the bar floating off the ground every time between reps. You want that to touch the floor every single time. And then the chances are good that the bar will roll away from you a little bit over the course of the set. So make sure that you roll it back to the spot where it began. So if that's the middle of your foot, roll it back from the middle of your foot. If it's closer to the ball, make sure it gets in that same spot every time, but it's probably going to roll away from you. There's 2 things that people can do here that are the most common mistakes that you see with the barbell row. The first one is opening the back angle too much. So you can see when you do a barbell row correctly that the back angle stays more or less horizontal. So you're going to stay leaned over, just like that. It doesn't open up too much. If you do open up your back angle too much, it looks like this. One sort of telltale way to know if you're opening your back angle up too much is if the bar starts touching really low. So if it starts touching somewhere along your belly or even closer to your hips than it should be pretty high up, right about your sternum height, or maybe just a hair lower than that. So keep your back angle horizontal so your chest is pointed towards the floor the whole time. The second most common mistake that people make is jerking the bar so that they actually go to meet the bar once the bar has started moving. So he's going to jerk on this pretty hard and go back to meet it with his chest. Okay, do that one more time. And you can see that there's a second movement where the back angle comes up and then gets more towards the end. So it gets too vertical and then it comes more horizontal by the time that the bar reaches where it touches his sternum. You want to keep the back angle more or less constant throughout the barbell row. So let's do one more correctly. So he's not going to let his back angle change too much. So you can see this stays more or less constant throughout the barbell row. Hope that was helpful. Just let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and we will help you out if we can.